Bienvenidos al programa de Russ Joy. Me llamo Russ Joy, lo sabes, porque es el nombre del programa. Welcome to Barcelona, a beautiful, beautiful city that I hope to see a lot of, maybe, at some point. I can't even give you like a high energy welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I also forgot to mention that you're smart in Spanish, but it doesn't really matter, does it? You know who's not smart? Dave Dombrowski. I want to start there. Okay. The Phillies are officially screwed. It is done. It is over. I was texting with Anthony Sanfilippo. I don't usually reveal the contents of the text messages that I'm currently engaged with him in, but Ant's an idiot. He is genuinely fucking dumb right now because the Phillies have no shot. I mean, I don't think we're ready to say that the Phillies could go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. I think we all kind of knew that the last time we talked on Monday. I think at that point, Ranger Suarez hadn't yet signed with the Red Sox, but we kind of figured that he was going to be gone, and there were questions about whether JT Realmuto was going to be back, and Bichette seemed to be very much in line to go to the Phillies. It felt like every day we heard more and more. We would see things come out from Bob Heyman. We would see things come out from Jeff Passan and Ken Rosenthal. Ken Rosenthal last night was on a show, and he was talking about the fact that they legitimately thought that it was almost a foregone conclusion that Bichette was going. I even have the wrong freaking bottom. That's how upset I am. Here we go. There we go. There's the right banner. Should be Phightin Words. Ken Rosenthal yesterday said it's almost a foregone conclusion that Bichette is going to go to the Phillies. I mean, everybody thought that there was a good chance he was going to go to the Phillies. There was a quote that came out, and I'm having a hard time with the time difference of when things came out, if it was actually on Friday, because it's noon where you guys are, and it's like the nighttime where I'm at. But there was this thing that came out about how Bichette might not want to go back to Toronto because he didn't want to play half of his games on the turf or whatever at Rogers. And that seems silly because you play on dirt as an infielder. So I don't fully understand that rationale, but whatever. I had this weird sinking feeling when I woke up this morning, though, because there was part of me that said it almost felt like the Phillies were being played. Like, it legitimately felt like the Phillies were being used as leverage. Was that leverage for the Blue Jays? Was that leverage for another team? And things got really bad, okay, right? So you go through a couple of things here. One, Kyle Tucker signs with the Dodgers. And I was going to come on the show today and I was going to bemoan the fact that Kyle Tucker going to the Dodgers is yet again proof that we are probably going to go to a lockout where owners are going to be like, we need a salary cap because there is nobody who can match the kind of salaries the Dodgers are giving out. Yeah, there's a lot of deferred money. And yeah, Kyle Tucker is going to get $60 million a year to be a Dodger. You thought Kevin Durant joining that all-time Golden State Warriors team was bad. Kyle Tucker going and signing with the Dodgers is absolutely absurd at that kind of money. And I wanted to come on the show and I wanted to complain about it. And I also wanted to hold off a little bit long enough into the day where maybe we could have done a show about Bichette going to the Phillies. Now, Bichette is not a perfect player, but he certainly would have represented an upgrade to this lineup. I know that there are people who've been making the case that I guess over the last 2 years his defensive metrics are down, but he would have brought something to this lineup and something to this locker room that they just haven't had. That clubhouse desperately needed somebody to go in and shake things up, and they're not getting that guy. They desperately needed somebody who they could add into the middle of that order or push somebody down and sit at the top of the order or close to it where you have a guy who could hit 300 consistently. That guy's gone. What's the fix right now? Because we're going to get into in a second what Bichette ended up signing for, and there's a report now from Bob Nightingale that the Phillies thought they had Bichette signed, and then the Mets swooped in at the last second and offered absurd money. But like, just really quickly, and I would love for everyone to drop in the comments, what exactly are the Phillies supposed to do? Like, if you're a diehard Phillies fan right now, what is the fix? What's the thing that you're going to hang your hat on? Like, if you want to go into this season believing the Phillies have a chance, please let me know. What is the move? What's the move? What's the thing that's supposed to make the Phillies relevant? Because, see, I said this last week, and I said it the week before. I think that not bringing back Ranger Suarez is going to bite the Phillies really, really badly, because you're taking an ultimate strength, that starting rotation, and you're throwing it into disarray and putting a lot of question marks in place. Will Jesus Luzardo be the guy who looked like an early Cy Young candidate? Will he be the guy that everybody feared was tipping pitches? We know that Aaron Nola is wildly inconsistent and probably is like a number 4 at this point. Zach Wheeler isn't going to be around for the first half of the season. You'll be lucky if you have him for the second half of the season. You're putting everything in Christopher Sanchez's basket, right? Like, you're putting an immense amount of pressure on him, and he's been able to stand up to it, so good for him, and like, that's awesome. You also now pretty much need Andrew Painter to be a legitimate guy in that rotation. There are a lot of question marks. I thought that letting Ranger Suarez go was going to be a mistake that could doom the Phillies, but that was also kind of with the understanding that, like, all right, well, if that money is gone, right, if the money that Suarez was going to get, which he ultimately got from the Red Sox, and good for him, by the way, side note, good for Ranger Suarez. He worked his ass off. He was a consummate professional. He was a very likable dude. This city embraced him, and I hope he has a ton of success with the Red Sox. I'm glad that Ranger Suarez upheld his end of the bargain, not going to the Mets. So good on Ranger Suarez, and I will root for him every time I can see him pitch, unless he's pitching against the Phillies. You know, tip of the cap to Ranger Suarez. Awesome stuff. Good for him. I think the Phillies are idiots for not bringing him back. But we come back to the main point of the show right now. I thought that while Bo Bichette is a flawed player, there was enough good there that you could say there's enough of a change. You maybe are shaking up the clubhouse a little bit, getting everybody out of this cushy, oh, we feel bad about ourselves when things don't go. No. You need somebody to go in there and, like, roll in a smoke grenade, right? You need somebody to go in there and cause a little bit of chaos. Team got way too comfortable with one another for a few years. You needed something. You needed somebody who was going to have a different approach at the plate. That guy's gone. The only thing left for the Phillies, right, to, like, complete the hat trick of fuck-ups would be for the Phillies to now have pissed off JT Realmuto, and JT Realmuto goes somewhere else. Because I don't have the clip here. I was going to have the clip, and then I don't have the clip because it's on a different app. But there was a thing that I think it was Jim Salisbury put out on his podcast with Todd Zalecki and Ruben Amaro, saying, in essence, he's heard all along that JT Realmuto has a different place to land. He has another destination to go to if the Phillies don't work out. Can I tell you that, like, right now, if I were the Mets, I would go get JT Realmuto just for fun. I would do it just to screw with the Phillies. Genuinely. Like, if I were Steve Cohen right now, I'd figure it out. I would just go get JT Realmuto. I'd stick it to the Phillies, and I would try to do whatever I can to give the Dodgers some kind of run for their money. I think the Phillies are going to screw this up, because here's the problem, right? I was texting yesterday with somebody who will remain nameless, and I was like, well, they better hope they get Bichette, because they're probably going to piss off JT. And this person said, well, JT's not as good as you think. He's been declining. He's not as good as you think he is. Bichette will fix a lot of that. Okay, Bichette's gone. So what's the fix? Who's the trade target? Who's the free agent that's going to make a massive difference to this team? And if you're sitting there saying to yourself, well, at least we know the Phillies didn't get this done, but the Phillies didn't really want Bo Bichette that much. Maybe they wanted to, signal to their fan base that they were trying, but maybe they didn't really actually want to go after him. Like, maybe that was it, right? We could lie to ourselves, tell ourselves, feel a little bit better, right? Except that's not what happened. It's not what happened at all. Because the Phillies apparently did make an offer. And so we're going to get into it now. So Bo Bichette got a 3-year, $126 million deal from the Mets. The Mets who came out of nowhere. The Mets who were spurned by Kyle Tucker, right? They were in on Kyle Tucker, and he decided to go to the Dodgers for $60 million a year, and who the hell could blame him, to go play on the best team in baseball and maybe help them complete a three-peat. I mean, I think it's ridiculous, and I don't think it's really competitive. Fine, sure. Bichette gets this deal from the Mets, 3-year deal. Then it comes out that there is an opt-out after year 1, and there's an opt-out after year 2. So you go, okay, he can make $42 million a season for 3 seasons, or he can make $42 million this season. He can opt out, right? Like maybe he's going to go out and have a hell of a year for the Mets, and he's going to prove to the rest of Major League Baseball why he was much more deserving of a higher AAV than the Phillies were willing to give him. We're going to get to the Phillies offer here in a second. Bo Bichette is essentially doing the smartest thing any player could do. Short-term deal, higher average value than anyone thought he would get, opt out after year 1. So even if he doesn't like playing for the Mets, guess what? Next year, he can hit free agency again. And if he has a great season, he'll probably play himself into $30+ million a year on a long-term deal. And it felt like to this point, there was no team willing to offer him $30+ million a year. And I say that because Bob Nightingale decided apparently the Phillies did make an offer. And it was a big offer. It was a lucrative offer. But it wasn't $30 million a year. So we're going to pull up, because we're going to try to credit where credit is due. Bob Nightingale put this out a little bit ago. And this is going to make you feel nauseous. It's going to make you feel upset. It's going to make you feel sick to your stomach. According to Bob Nightingale, the Phillies had agreed to Bo Bichette's request for a 7-year, $200 million deal last night, Thursday night, and believed they would sign him until the Mets swooped in with their 3-year, $126 million offer after losing out in the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes. You know that wonderful graph? You know that wonderful meme? Fuck around and find out. The Phillies have been playing footsies with Bo Bichette and his agent this entire time. We heard about how there was going to be a meeting early in the week, and we heard for days after, oh yeah, it feels like the Phillies are a sure thing at this point. Damn near a sure thing to getting Bo Bichette. Well, you met on Monday, right? It was apparently a productive meeting. You met on Monday. Today's Friday. There's that old adage about if you're trying to sign a guy, if you're trying to get a contract done, don't let him leave. If it was such a positive meeting, meet the ask. You have an idea of what you're willing to offer. You have an idea that after he comes in at a much higher number, there's a middle ground. Get the deal done. Don't let him go. Because here's the thing, if the Phillies get this deal done on Monday, they're getting Bo Bichette at under $30 million a season for 7 seasons. And guess what? Their lineup would be better. Defensively, team might be a mess. But their lineup would have been better. They would have been better set and better poised to be a good team. And now he's gone. And so what does that leave you with? It leaves you with nothing. It leaves you with squadoosh. So the Phillies thought they had him signed up until Thursday night. And then the Mets came in and stole their lunch money. So let me ask you a question really quickly. I have been deriding Dave Dombrowski for a while. I have been deriding what I perceived Dave Dombrowski's offseason plan was going to be. I have been told by someone in my life named Anthony Sanfilippo, but not to name Anthony Sanfilippo, but it was Anthony Sanfilippo, that I had, quote, no idea what you're talking about, end quote. And when I brought up the fact that the Phillies had very few options that they could realistically be in on, and it certainly felt like they were going to lose Ranger Suarez, piss off JT Realmuto, and not really get involved with anybody, most of that came to fruition. Now it does sound like the Phillies made a competitive offer. Listen, if we had talked at the beginning of the offseason and said the Phillies are going to offer 7 years, $200 million to Bo Bichette, most people would have thought he would have signed. But they waited. Now, how much of this was Bo Bichette wanting to see what Kyle Tucker was going to get? Maybe. Maybe it was that. Possible. Maybe they knew the Mets were interested all along and they wanted to see if Tucker doesn't go to the Mets, could that change the offer for Bichette? But it's felt like this was a slow roll, a slow burn, stringing the Phillies along. And there it is. Dave Dombrowski looks like an idiot. This happening the way that it did, thinking that they had this contract agreed to on Thursday and now it's gone, this is the kind of move you would expect out of a rookie GM or out of a very, very junior general manager, somebody with 2-3 years of experience maybe, to have a division rival swoop in and get the guy. That's not what's supposed to happen to somebody who a lot of people think is going to be a future Hall of Fame executive in the Baseball Hall of Fame. That's not what's supposed to happen. The whole reason you have a guy like Dave Dombrowski is to make big moves, is to go out and raise your team's ceiling. Don Mattingly's a great hire as bench coach. And so I'm not going to say that it was a terrible hire with an attempt to just woo Bichette. But that was one of the things that we heard. Bo Bichette has admiration for Don Mattingly. The Phillies getting Don Mattingly is going to get the job done. It didn't. Now, again, can I blame Bo Bichette for saying, nah, I'll do this again next offseason? No. $42 million for one season or up to 3 seasons of $42 million? Hell no. Good for him. Am I going to stick it am I going to boo Bo Bichette harder because he made a smart business decision? No. I'm going to continue to deride a front office that looks in over their heads. And again, what's the move now? JT Realmuto? Cool. You have no catchers. You have no depth organizationally that are ready to step in and play catcher. You now have a gaping hole in your rotation, in addition to the very gaping hole where a Zach Wheeler is supposed to be. So your rotation's worse. Your bullpen might be better. I'll give the Phillies this. Their bullpen might be better going into next season. So the bullpen might be better. Rotation is worse. The lineup is largely unchanged. They still haven't gotten rid of Nick Castellanos. The most recent report is that they're going to have to spend $17 to $19 million just to move off of Castellanos' contract. So that's not very helpful. They signed Garcia, who's effectively going to be a similar hitter. They let Harrison Bader go. They're going to have Justin Crawford man center field. Not sure he's a center fielder. They wouldn't even give Justin Crawford a look this past season. And now he's supposed to be the day one starter. Like somebody just tell me what exactly is supposed to make a Phillies fan feel better right now? And so I have another question. Is it time to finally, as a collective fan base, is it time to finally call John Middleton out? Right? Because on one hand, there has been a thought out there that Middleton may have been restricting how much money Dave Dombrowski has had available to him in free agency. And as much as I could kind of follow that line of logic with Ranger Suarez being gone, the fact that he was willing to spend $200 million over 7 seasons for Bo Bichette tells me that Middleton is still willing to play ball if it's a difference-making player. I think it's a mistake to let Ranger Suarez go. But if you were going to go out and get Bichette and make your lineup better, just under $30 million a year, I can't say that John Middleton's full of shit. I thought that the idea that signing Bichette means you had to also lose Realmuto was nonsense. But man, this doesn't look good. By the way, the second that this offer comes in, did the Phillies have the opportunity to match? The only reason I ask is this. If the Mets came in and they're offering an opt-out after year 1 and year 2, he's not a $42 million player. But do you have a conversation if you're the Phillies about like, all right, 7 years, $200 million. We felt good about that. We can't let our division rival swoop in and get it. Do you then offer Bichette like a 7-year, $300 million deal with an opt-out after year 3? Does that get it done? Does having the short-term commitment of 3 years get the job done if you're the Phillies? Now, I would not have encouraged the Phillies to spend $42 million on Bichette and give him an opt-out after year 1 and 2. But do you tweak your offer? Do you offer that opt-out after 3 years? Maybe. Like maybe it would have helped you. Or maybe he stays and maybe that contract doesn't age well. But man, it is so hard to find a viable path to the Phillies being relevant this year. I mean, it's going to take, I don't know. It's going to take the Mets going way beyond LOL Mets. It's going to take like legitimately, historically bad injury luck to derail the Mets. the Dodgers are going to be practically unbeatable. And I'm sure somebody will figure out a way to take it to them. And if you get into a playoff series, maybe there's going to be a team that's going to be able to kind of take them to 6 games, maybe. But it very much feels like the Dodgers are going to be a buzzsaw again. So I'm going to throw this idea out. And I don't love it. But do you look at where things are at right now in the National League and say, yeah, you know what? It might be time to start selling. Because I do think that there's going to be a lockout. I do. And if you just lost out on Bichette and you don't have any recourse, you don't have any options in free agency, you have been unwilling to move an Andrew Painter, who now you need because you let Ranger Suarez go, is now the time to hit the reset button? Is it? And do you roll with that for 2 years? And do you sit through a lockout and not have to worry about the guy that you just went and spent $30 million, $35 million, $40 million, whatever it was, for the next big free agent? Do you just say, we had a run, we didn't get it done, and Russ Joy was right? Losing that World Series to the Astros was bad, but running it back means that this window that was supposed to be potentially multiple World Series ends up being a massive what if. This stinks. It does. And I also don't see a viable path to there being a stud prospect coming up and making a significant difference. I could be wrong. Maybe I am. I'm not, but maybe I am. Okay, so it's all over for the Phillies, to me. Barring, again, incredibly bad luck on the injury front. Speaking of injuries, Philadelphia Flyers. Now, I hate doing this, and I brought this up earlier today on Twitter. I had no intention of looking at Tankathon this year, genuinely. I didn't want to look at Tankathon. I didn't even want to have a remote consideration of all right, if things go sideways for the Flyers, could they potentially look to they're not going to tank, but could the Flyers have ended up in a scenario where tanking would have made sense? I hate this so much. But with Dan Vladar hurt, and there still being some kind of up in the airness about how long he's going to be out, I think that if you're Danny Briere, you have to have a very long, hard conversation with Keith Jones, with Dan Hilferty, and with Rick Tocchet. The injury bug has bitten this team. You lost Tyson Forster for the year. You were kind of able to make that up for a bit. I actively have not been watching these games while I've been in Europe, so you can throw my take out. But the Flyers have hit the skids. Mishkov isn't scoring. Vladar's hurt. Erson's been garbage all year. Kolosov has had a good season in the AHL, so that's cool. But he's going to be put in a pretty bad spot. Risto missed a game, right? Risto's hurt day to day. I mean, at what point do you look at the Flyers situation and say, yeah, this isn't tenable? There to me is no scenario in which Danny Briere trades meaningful, valuable draft picks or meaningful, valuable prospects to go out and get a backup caliber goalie, or to go out and get a bottom 6 forward, or to go out and get a middle pair or bottom pair defenseman to shore things up. I don't see that. I think Danny Briere is a smarter guy than that. I don't think he's going to burn down the future to go on a fake playoff run like they tried to do a couple years ago with Torts in a draft that ultimately landed them Jetlachenko. I think Danny's a lot smarter than that. But I am going to show you, this is kind of where the Flyers are at. If Vladar is to miss, let's say, a week, maybe it's a different conversation. But if Vladar gets bad injury news, if he gets a bad prognosis and he's going to be out 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, longer, look how ridiculous the Eastern Conference is right now. Okay? The Flyers, right now, have the 14th best odds of getting the number 1 pick in the draft. We don't actually look at the percentages because they don't matter, right? But you look more at where the Flyers are at currently. Oh, they can't even move up, right? 14th. They can't even get to the number 1 pick. You can only jump up 10 spots. But look at the points and the points percentage. The Flyers right now are at 52 points. You have a week, 2 weeks of no Dan Vladar, and you're trotting out Sam Ersson, who's had a horrible season. It is totally within the realm of possibility that they can get to like the 8th spot in 2 weeks. Maybe even further down in 2 weeks. Now, I'm not actively campaigning for a tank. I am so sick of watching bad Flyers hockey. I was looking forward to a playoff run. And then I left for Europe. The Eagles got eliminated from the playoffs. The Flyers got bit by the injury bug. And the Phillies lost out on Bo Bichette. Maybe I can't leave the country. Like, maybe, is this my fault? Maybe. It is funny. Like, I actually did say to myself, every time I go to Vegas, it's when the Phillies are in the playoffs. Phillies always get bounced in the playoffs when I go to Vegas. And I joked to myself, well, at least the Phillies can't lose because baseball season's over. The Phillies can't possibly lose while I'm gone for work. They lost Bichette. So maybe I should just shut my yapper. All right. Last thing. I have no idea what to make of the Eagles' search for an offensive coordinator. One of the biggest names that people are excited about potentially is Mike McDaniel. It came out today. The Ravens tweeted that they're going to interview him for their head coaching job. Brian Daboll, the former Giants coach, who's worked with Sirianni and has coached Jalen Hurts back in the college days. He was rumored to be a candidate potentially for offensive coordinator. He's going to be interviewing for the Titans head coaching job. Todd Monken, the former Ravens offensive coordinator, appears to be going with John Harbaugh to the Giants. There are plenty of good offensive minds out there. So I'm not like, this is not me like throwing flags up or like sounding the alarms. But it is a little bit of a bummer to think that some of the more dynamic names on the open market very well could take head coaching jobs. That doesn't even include Kevin Stefanski, who obviously would be a massive hire for this team. I think he'll get a head coaching job. I guess the question is, like, if you're Brian Daboll, like I go between Daboll and Daboll, it doesn't matter. If you're him, do you want to go into a situation like the Titans? Because that doesn't feel like a situation that you're going to immediately find success, and then you run the risk of not being able to be in contention for a good head coaching job in the future. Or do you kind of go the Kellen Moore route? Do you take that OC job with the Eagles? Do you kind of rehabilitate your image within the league, get the Giants stink off of you, help the Eagles go on a deep playoff run next year, maybe even a Super Bowl, and then hit the open market next year and go out and get a good head coaching job? Maybe. The problem, of course, is from the Eagles' perspective, you can't possibly have another guy come in and have a 1-year gig and then leave again. Like, Jalen Hurts needs somebody to stay here more than a year. Somebody needs to do the meme of Will Smith in Fresh Prince, and Will Smith finds out that his dad, doesn't want to take him back, and he goes over to Uncle Vern, and he goes, "Why doesn't he want me? Why doesn't he want me? Why doesn't he love me? Whatever it was. Why doesn't he want me, man?" And, big Uncle Vern comes in and gives him a hug. I feel like that's Jalen Hurts right now. Like, every offensive coordinator he has either leaves or sucks and has to leave. But they don't have anybody right now that it looks like could be a multi-year guy. Unless there is a passing game coordinator or an offensive coordinator waiting in the wings, a younger guy who still wouldn't be a viable option next offseason for a head coaching job. I don't know what to do. I think the Eagles are going to get a good OC, but it is a little bit disheartening, just a little bit, a smidge disheartening to see so many of the guys that they were interested in for OC now getting head coaching opportunities, head coaching interviews. But I have more faith in the Eagles being able to get that right than just about anything else in the city right now. So, I think that's it, guys. I know it's a short episode today. I've got a team function to go to. Barcelona is nice. I hope to have a nice report on Monday from Barcelona where I can tell you about some wonderful things in the city. Vienna was nice. It was very cold. It felt a little bit sad because it was very snowy and very slippery and I was in a lot of meetings, so I didn't get to experience Vienna proper. But I am supposed to have some time this weekend at some point to go and explore Barcelona a little bit. So hopefully I'll be able to come back on Monday with a little bit of report. So thanks for everybody who tuned in over on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Big thank you to everybody who listens in the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Don't complain like Ford that I didn't go out to the comments. I'll talk to all of you on Monday. By the way, many of you lost. If you remember last week, I put up a poll on YouTube. How many episodes would I do this week? And a lot of you, way too many of you said 0. A few of you said 1. Almost none of you said 2 or 3. That was 2 episodes this week. And for the first time ever in the history of this show, I did 2 episodes from 2 different countries, neither of which were the United States, in the same week. That's an all-time. That's an all-timer. All-timer. Nick Abe says it's 1.5 episodes. It's not 1.5 episodes. All right, hold on. You know what? I got it. Do I go out to... No, I can't go out to comments. I can't. They were on the screen, though. I do have to go. If I miss my Uber or bus or whatever, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, so I can't do that. A big thank you to everybody who tuned in. We can debate this on Twitter at some point. At Joy on Broad. Okay. I appreciate all of you. I'll talk to each and every one of you very soon. Until Monday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy. But you knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Talk to all of you very soon. Let's hope Dave Dombrowski has something up his sleeve, and it's not like a booger-covered tissue. Bye now.